Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures That Outperform. I hope you've been tuning into the innovation series. I think this is groundbreaking. We're getting into the human factors of innovation in a way and a level of depth that I really haven't seen. Most companies struggle to innovate. First of all, they can't build even the basics of a really good culture. Innovative culture is level four. Go back to episode one. You've got to get these basics going, and you want to work your way into this innovative level of culture, level four maturity, and start really pressing ahead with these different factors that are in this episode. This is what happens at level four innovative culture. And so today, we're going to actually be chatting about this hiring for creativity. And so I'm here with my amazing co host, Terry Mays, certified culture engineer. I'm Frank Wander. I didn't mention that. But Terry, why don't you kick us off? What do you think about creative people?
So, when you hire creative people in the organization, you want to make sure that you bring them into a space where they have the freedom and the liberty to create. So,
Mm.
that means you want to put people around them that if they're not also creative thinkers, they're at least willing to be out of the box thinkers. They're willing to allow the person that is the creative to be creative, that they're not trying to squash that creativity right out of them. That's usually what
I,
happens.
I always call that they're a good audience for the creative people, that they
Right,
encourage them and ask questions and probe. What are you thinking? Where did that come from? Right?
right.
So, episode five, exploration risk taking. Everybody should tune in.
Yeah. You absolutely want to surround them with good people that
Mm.
can help encourage that creativity, that
Yep.
curiosity, that natural curiosity about things. I've learned so many things by just being curious about it.
Yeah.
You go in to ask the right people the right questions, and you get to learn so many fascinating things when you do that. You learn things about people, about organizations, about just different environments, different things that you get to learn when you're creative and when you're curious.
Yeah.
So you don't want somebody to squash that right out of the person. That's one of the biggest things that you want to tackle first is to make sure that you're not squashing the
Mhm.
creativity out of the organization by saying all the reasons why this won't work and all the reasons why, oh, we've tried that before, it never worked, or this is not good, or that's too risky. You want to take some risks. You want to step outside the box of what you've always done in order to get something different, new, and innovative.
Yeah.
So you want to allow people to be creative, allow them to let that child back out again. So all of us started off as creatives.
Yep.
We all at some point in our lives as little kids played dress up and we pretended to be, a princess or a train conductor or a Superman or whatever it is. We all did that as kids. That
Mhm.
creativity is still inside. We've just learned as adults not to be so open and creative because we may not be accepted. And so we've learned how to stifle ourselves and conform to the environment around us because we want to be accepted. We don't want to be rejected. And so
Yeah.
when you're trying to build that creativity, you want to open that child back up. You want to let the
See
kid
if
back
you can
out.
bring that child back to life because creativity
Yes.
was pounded out of just about everybody. I remember
Yes.
writing this very creative piece. It was in 10th grade English class. We had to watch a movie and come up with kind of the prequel. What happened? How did this person get here? I don't want to go into the details, but I thought I came up with this incredibly creative stuff. And I remember the teacher standing up in front saying, I've read all the papers and, very, very good job. Somebody came up with this crazy idea. I knew. And then she talks about the idea. I'm like, what an asshole. Right. I thought it was great. Um, anyway, that's the type of thing that happens in school. And it gets worse when you go into the business world. Let's face
Yeah.
it. People are creative. Abraham Maslow, he always had a famous quote, and he said, but why in God's name isn't everyone creative? Where was the human potential lost? How was it crippled? We've got to abandon that sense of amazement in the face of creativity as if it were a miracle that anybody created anything. And I think that's true. What goes on in most organizations. So you have to hire creative. There are creative people out there. Your organization has a creative quotient. If you measured the creativity of everybody, there's psychometric tests, you put it together, you get the creative quotient for your organization. You want to bring in creative people. And when you're interviewing, you want to ask questions that really allow you to identify if somebody's creative. Like, tell me about some of the creative things you've done in organizations or creative things you've done in your life. Do you consider yourself a creative person? And you can use a psychometric test to measure creativity. And I strongly recommend it. Companies have to seed creative people in. And, they're different. Apple was always great at, I think, bringing in, creative people and valuing it because they wanted to be different.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to value it. I think
Yeah.
that's the key. You've got to value creativity. You've got to value people that think differently, that have a difference of opinion, and not see them as a challenge or a threat to the organization, but they're actually helping the organization become better. When you start to challenge the status quo, you start to challenge the way things have always been done, you start to ask questions and start thinking more deeply about things, maybe in a way that you never have before. That's where you get something new. That's how you
Yeah.
get something new. That's how things you begin to see a different option that maybe you never would have seen that option if we hadn't started challenging and questioning ourselves. Why are we doing things this way?
Yeah, it's just so important. Seeding the organization with creative people is a real big deal. And I think doing these creativity psychometric tests really says you value it as an organization. Or, looking at the creative quotient of each organization, if you have a department of 100 people, you measure it and say, here's the creative quotient, and you work to elevate it over time. That immediately sends a message to everybody that this company values creativity. And it goes very nice hand in hand with exploration and risk taking because you're putting all those elements together to build a creative culture. Terry, do you want to cue up that Think Different? I think
Let's
this sets the
bring up
stage.
that
These are,
video.
you're probably not going to hire one of these people, but they're out there, and there's people who are certainly a level below this that are incredible. And we'll add this to the stage. And if you haven't seen this, it's just great.
Yeah.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
I mean, so that is absolutely, I think that just paints a picture of the fact that you can bring people in who really want to push things forward. They want to change things. And when you look at the characteristics of creative people, one of them is they're highly curious. They have that persistent desire to learn and discover new things. They're always looking for new and original ways of thinking. And that commercial that Apple did is great. It just captured that feeling. People who are really good at creativity, they may want to, write a fiction novel. They're dreamers. They do complex thinking. They're looking for challenging tasks. They love a challenging task. They might take on a puzzle. And they prefer to find solutions without anyone's help because they get a tremendous amount of joy out of being creative. They're not afraid to take risks. So, we're not talking about people who are afraid of risk. They have a huge tolerance for risk and they dig into it and they take great joy in it. And so if you're looking for creativity, there are, instruments that test all of this. You certainly want to have curious people. They're the ones who are going home, thinking about stuff at night, playing with new things, taking things apart, and they're going to come up with a lot of ideas.
Yeah. You
And
want people that have an imagination,
yeah,
that they're thinking about what could be, how things could be versus how they are right now. Not necessarily always saying that how we have it right now is bad. It's not that it's bad. It's just, could it be better? How
Right.
could we continuously improve? How could we make this better? What's the next generation of this solution that we offer? How can we improve on the solution we currently offer? These are things that you want people thinking about in the organization, not just the leaders, but you want people throughout the organization thinking about how we can improve, how we can be better, because it just helps the entire organization get better.
Yeah.
You want that creative imagination, those creative juices to be flowing with not just a few people, but with a lot of people, especially now in this time where things are changing so much. You think about all the different industries that have undergone drastic changes during the pandemic and post-pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Things have just changed significantly. And you don't get that much change without a whole lot of challenge to the way we've always done things. You've got to have some creative thinkers. You've got to have some people that can see a cape from a towel.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
everybody
Right.
and that little kid that tied a cape around their neck and they pretended to be a Superman or Batman or whatever the case might be. Or you've tied a towel on your hair to make long hair or something like that. So we've all done that as kids.
Yeah.
You need that person that's still doing that as an adult, that can see a solution for more than what it currently is. You want somebody that's thinking about, what else could this be? I know it's a spoon, but what else could it be? What else could I use it for? I know it's a fork, but what else could I
Yeah.
use it for? You want somebody that's thinking like that all the time, that's being creative, that's imagining something else. They're imagining another world. You want that when you're trying to be
Yeah.
innovative, because that's how you get there.
Oh, yeah. We're living in an age of disruption. Your world is going to change regardless of how your company looks. Things are going to be different. You need people to push things forward. And that's why I love that commercial, right? The only thing you can't do is ignore them. They don't accept the status quo. They want to change things. Creative people want to change things. And you've got to hire creative. You've got to see the organization with people like this. They're somewhat rare commodities. But Terry and I were talking before the show, just by building a culture where you're creating freedom to fail and bring creative people in, you're going to stir the creative juices that existed in many of the people in your organization. There are plenty of creative people there who just really haven't had a chance to express it. They're going to start to thrive. Some of them are going to come to life, and you'll be surprised how creative some people are. It's all about elevating the creative culture of your organization, hiring for creative, rewarding creative, doing everything you need to do to bring that creativity out in the organization, to express it, to elevate the creative quotient, which is the collective creativity of your workplace.
Yeah,
And
to
so,
let people know that they're safe, that they can be creative, they can share their ideas and thoughts, that there are no bad ideas, there are no bad thoughts, in that realm of creativity. You're just throwing something out there to see what will stick.
yeah.
You want to foster that type of an environment. I love those kinds of sessions where you can just brainstorm and
Oh, they're fun.
idea is a bad idea. You just kind of throwing things out there to see what works, what might work, what could be good, what might be an option we could
Yeah.
take. Those are fun things to do.
And we're going to get, as we move through the series, we're going to get to the discussions on making room for this stuff to happen, because that's very important. But in the next episode, which is going to be episode 7, we're going to be talking about how do you challenge and connect with every level of the organization. Because you created a strategy, painted a picture of where you're going, you got to really take this thing down. And we'll talk about that. And so that's the next piece of innovative culture. I hope you're really enjoying the series. We're so glad you could join us. Certainly got up to 14 episodes. And so there's a lot more great stuff coming. We're here every Wednesday, 3 o'clock Eastern time. I hope you could join us for episode 7. Thanks for being here.